Welcome, everybody. My name is Kathy Nelson. I'm the CEO and founder of the Photo Managers. And once a month, I have the pleasure of doing what we call career advice from a pro. Started this many years ago, and I always enjoy it. And we always get a great group of people. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll have plenty of time to answer your questions. And I always ask members the same 5 questions, and it's always a very engaging conversation. And I think what's probably fascinating for any of you, you can go back on our YouTube channel and see past conversations, is the wide variety of backgrounds that people come to who do this for a living, and also what their area of expertise and what they focus on. So I am really thrilled to introduce you to Bonnie, who has been a member from day one. It feels like I've known Bonnie for many, many years. She's been a member of the Photo Managers. And so Bonnie, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you found your way to the Photo Managers.
Absolutely. It was serendipity is what it was. So back in 2007, I'd been married for almost 20 years to a freelance photographer. He was the artist and I was the organizer of the world and the operations person. And in 2007, I decided we needed to go our separate ways. So I needed to come up with my own business or my own source of revenue because we had 2 young girls and, I needed to be on my own. So I decided to become a residential organizer because I have the organizing gene. I was born with it. And I knew about residential organizing. And we have NAPO. We have a great chapter of NAPO here in the Chicago area. So I decided to do that. So one of my first clients, Kathy, you go room by room, categorizing, classifying, deciding what we're going to do, where we're going to put things. And we stumbled across the closet in the hallway that was covered full to the brim from floor to ceiling with albums and VHS tapes and negatives and slides and photos and, what all of you people who are listening to this have seen yourself. So she said, Bonnie, can you help me with the photo stuff? And right there, a specialty in photo organizing was launched in my residential organizing business. So from day one, I did that. And I added, various pieces of the puzzle to my services, but I eventually narrowed it down to printed photos only. And we'll talk more about that later. And then 7 years ago, I officially let go of my residential organizing services, retired from NAPO, and I'm totally focused on printed photos for the photo organizing world.
Wow. And so again, how many years has it been? Did you say?
17 years.
17
Last year
years.
was my last year was my sweet 16 being in business and being a photo organizer.
That's amazing. So I love that. So I think we had just recently, we did brand new photo managers or organizers in here, 17 years of experience expanding that. So tell us, I always ask, one of the first things I always ask is, how do you find your clients? How have you built your business and found your clients? And after 17 years, I'm sure it's different than it was when you first started, but tell us about that.
Correct. So believe it or not, most of my clients find me online. Most of them. I do get some personal referrals through NAPO. My colleagues in NAPO, I got some, but really the vast majority, I get them through Google, through online. And it might be that I live in the North Shore of Chicago, and so people can see that I'm in Highland Park, and I have a lot of them in my North Shore or in Chicago. And I just thank Google. And I'll tell you one little quick story. A woman this was during the pandemic, and I offered when people went to my website, besides scheduling a 15-minute chat with me, they could schedule a Zoom. Because I figured we're in a very personal business. So more visual connection to somebody from the get-go is great. So this woman, she's 80 years old. She found me online. We had a Zoom call that she scheduled. We had this great conversation. She said, yep, Bonnie, you're the one. I want exactly what you're offering. So we made a date for the next week for me to go to her condo down in Lincoln Park. And I had parking instructions because she sort of lives in the, doorman building. I said, great. And I was just about to press the button to end the Zoom session. And she says, Bonnie, how do I know you're legit? Because she had found me online, and we were sensitive to scammers and stuff, but she had seen me. And so I told her, I was sitting right here, and I said, well, over here are the 17 boxes of client A that I'm taking to my scanning company tomorrow. And then these boxes are from, and then I'm going to Denver for my conference. So she said, great. So we worked together, and she was fine, and I'm legit. And I worked with her for a few hours and we had a great session. And as the end of the session was coming, she says, Bonnie, I see you have a lot of work to do on our photo collection with my lifetime of printed photos. We're going to be out of town for a couple weeks. Do you want to come and work while we're out of town? And then when I come back, we'll work again, together again. And I said, absolutely. These are the winter months. A lot of my clients are gone. So I work in their homes by myself on their photos. So here we go from her on our first conversation. Bonnie, how do I know you're legit? To Bonnie, here's the key to our condo. Come in and do whatever you want. And I share that with everybody because I think it's funny, but we have such a personal business. We're such a gift to our clients that they connect with us. And a lot of it is the chemistry. And she felt totally comfortable. And I'm still working with her because she had a huge collection and we're still working together. But Google and then some personal referrals. And then some of my, and last thing I'll say, Kathy, is since I only do printed photos, I get referrals from our local TPM members because some people only do digital. So they refer me to do the printed and then vice versa. I refer to them.
Right. And when you say Google and your website too, have you invested in SEO on your website and keywording and things, or are you just feel like?
I do say, and I'm glad you asked because I do have an assistant. I only have one person who does any work for me, and she's my assistant who does all my social media and my newsletter writing, which I have a digital newsletter every month.
Yeah, it's very consistent.
So that might get, that might get information out there. And then all my links, LinkedIn and Facebook and wherever else she posts, I'm getting my word out there. And then I do present. I mean, I think 2012 was my first time I presented at a local library. And I think I've gotten a few clients there, but in general, it's just getting the word out there to raise awareness about photo organizing for all of us.
Right. And so I love the question. And so again, if people have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. So let's talk a little bit about, because I one thing I know about Bonnie is you used to, at one point you were, because a lot of people think when they start a business, they're going to offer all services and try to, juggle. And that we always say, we're kind of a saying, we'll say, do what you love and outsource the rest. And so Bonnie is a perfect example of somebody. I think you at one point offered probably all the different services people might need: digital photo organizing, home movie conversion, printed, scanning. There's a lot that goes into this business. How did you make that decision to focus strictly on printed photo organizing?
So to me, for two reasons, the primary reasons are: one, the printed photos are at the highest risk of being lost or damaged, as we all know in our natural disasters. And to me, they're too precious. Luckily, I have my own family photos that my parents took, and I've scanned those, and they're like, I can't imagine not having those. So to me, they're a high priority that they're at risk. And then the story behind those printed photos, they live with our elders. And if we don't capture those stories while the people can still share them with us, that's lost. Even if we have the printed photo, we don't know the story behind it. So that to me is critical. I'm good with technology, but I'd rather do something that's analog, that's tangible, that I can do. And Kathy, sometimes I came up with this fun, when you go to a network meeting, you don't want to say the same boring elevator speech every time because it gets old. So I started telling people, especially people that I didn't know at all, I said, I do jigsaw puzzles for a living. I just paused and people are like, what? I said, well, the pieces of the puzzle are the 17 boxes of printed photos that my clients bring to me, but it is a jigsaw puzzle because they're all mixed up and we're trying to figure out what's the story that we want to tell. What does the cover of the jigsaw puzzle box look like? That's their story. So I just like tangible, and I'm a puzzle solver and a detective at heart and love looking for clues on my printed photos to figure out, what date was this taken? So I love it.
That's the funny thing. People always say, how can you organize somebody else's photos? Right. Well, there you go. Right. How do you organize somebody else's photos? Right. It's a jigsaw and you have a whole process to that. Yeah. Another question I wanted to ask, this is a little different than I always ask, but what is it that, since you're focused on the printed photo organizing collections, who's your target demographic? And what is it that they usually want? What's the problem that you're helping them solve?
So my demographics, I would say my clients age-wise are between 60 and 90 years old, mostly women. And the problem I solve for them is that they have these boxes and boxes of mixed up photos and so much, and maybe they're going to downsize, they're moving, so they don't have the space. But they're worried that they have 3 children, and how do they give their prints to their children? Mm-hmm. And, you know, in the world as we are all in the photo managers, when you scan them, you can give those photos to anybody you want, whether you have 1 child or 6 children or whatever. So to me, what was the I'm losing track of
no, that's okay.
question.
I just said, what's the problem that you're helping them solve? Like, what's their willingness to pay you a good amount of money, and the fact that you've been working with, right? Because Bonnie, you do this full time, right? It's your full time career, and you make a good living at it, you know. And I'm assuming people are wondering, like, how do you, you know, the people, there's a high value on that, right? That the client places.
Mm-hmm. Right. Totally. Because they have these boxes and boxes, they're overwhelmed and they're paralyzed and they don't know what to do. And so I'm their accountability partner, because we have a date on Tuesday at 1 o'clock and they're going to show up. Whereas if they just put it on their own calendar, they're going to come up with something else to do, and because it's overwhelming. And Kathy, I don't have a formula of the services that I offer. I sometimes work with the client, like let's say every week I do a 3-hour session until we're done, and then we get them scanned. Other clients don't have the time, so I have an initial session with them to get the lay of the land and the key players. And then I take all the photos back to my office. To me, the pandemic interrupted that time that we could have with our clients in person. And I think I tell my clients, especially if they're widowed and they're on their own, I'm an accountability partner, but I'm also a buddy that goes down memory lane with them. And to be able to work at their table with them, hearing the stories and laughing and crying and acknowledging their story is part of the gift of the end result, the end product that I'm going to give them. It's not just the end result, it's the journey. So to me, that's huge. Another thing that I want to weave in to tell people who are new at this is I have professional scanners. I bought the Kodak PS50 and the flatbed, and I use them. And then I realized, you know, I'd rather do with just Bonnie can do with her brain, and I don't have to worry about dust and technology breaking, getting upgraded. And so I luckily have, you know, choices here in my area that I can outsource everything to a local scanner, and they do phenomenal. And I don't have to worry about technology because they do this day in, day out, and that's what their purpose is. So I was very narrowly defining, obviously the pandemic, when they closed for a while, I brought my scanners back on, or for an emergency, like a funeral, I sometimes do the scanning, but boxes and boxes of printed photos and me, we're best together. And that's all.
So I always ask people this question, what is it that you love most about what you do?
I'd say play detective, because that's the challenge of looking for clues of when this photo was dated or who it was. In the photo, you know, through all the years. I would say that's my favorite. And then just giving this to my client to be able to have their story documented and shareable, color corrected because of the scanning process. And I'll never get tired of doing this. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. And what is it that, I always feel like it's important to ask the other side of the equation. What is it that you like least about what you do?
Technology. I mean, for me to have someone take, you know, 50,000 digital photos and organize them for a client and edit them and redate them because some of them are wrong. I have to deal with technology, but I don't want to be in front of a computer all day long and then have to deal with all the technology pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. So that's where the joy of outsourcing, right? And then we've done, you know, career advice from pro with people that only do digital photo organizing. It would say the opposite of Bonnie. Like, the last thing I ever want to do is printed photo organizing or scanning, right? And so, or some people who do both and then merge those two collections together. But often, what do you say to the client though, who says to you, I have digital photos? I mean, because everybody has digital photos now, right? Do you outsource that piece of the project to somebody else? So you don't turn that away, I'm assuming, right? Or if somebody says, I want to have one, like all my entire photo collection easily searchable and findable in one place, right? That's a combination then of merging analog and digital. How do you manage that?
So I do the printed, as we know, and we always start with the printed because once again, those are at risk. Digital, as long as they're backed up, they're at least, you know, insured. So I'll do the printed, and then I pass that on to the person who's going to do the digital part. And when they get merged together, they will be merged by one person. Especially if we have a client who wants to use SmugMug. I love SmugMug, but I'm not the expert on it anymore. I don't want to be. So that person handles that. And Kathy, a very specific thing that I tell this client that I'm going to be working with is that my team, because I work with my local Chicago people, we want to make this as efficient as possible for you. So what you tell me, I pass on to my buddy. Lita is usually the person who, or Lita or Allison are the people that I work with the most, to just make it as efficient. So there's not that many cooks in the pot and the client doesn't know who to talk to. We're very careful about who's in charge at any one moment and that we share the information so that it all gets done very efficiently.
That's great. Yeah, I love it. That's that's wise, and it's a common way of doing business, right? I always say that you're like a general contractor. Your general contractor doesn't, you trust that your general contractor knows who it is that's going to be the best cabinet maker, or put the floors in or do the electrical work, right? You don't expect your general contractor to know how to do all of that, right? So,
right. Yeah, we're a team.
Yeah, yeah. What advice would you give to anybody who's thinking about getting started in this business?
Work on your own photo collection first, but probably you have, because that's what a lot of people gets us into like saying, "Oh, I like this. I'm good at this." So that's number one. Try to pick one or two things that you think you like to do and not try to do every little thing. And some of that's personality wise. Even some of my colleagues in our Midwest chapter, when we're on our monthly Zoom, people say, "No, I like to do it all. Like, I like to have it all." I'm more of an in-depth person. I'd rather be in-depth, be the expert of one thing and not have to be up to date on 20 things. And it might be where I am in my age group. I can do this for decades more, but I'm not wanting to learn a ton of new stuff. So those are my suggestions. Pick a few things that you like to do.
And do that. And how has being a member of the photo managers been helpful in your business for all these years that you've been a great member of our community?
So number one is our annual conference.
Yeah.
And we learn so much from each other, and then we can give back. I enjoy presenting because I want to be able to share with others what I've learned along the way. And I think we are a very special community. As an organization of what we do, we're collaborative. There is enough work out there for all of us. And so we're not competitive. We're like, "Oh no, that's my client. You hands off." We don't do that. We're just collaborative. And I think even though I've already badmouthed technology, that I don't want to do technology all the time, we're learning from each other because technology changes. And so when we have our Facebook community or a conference, you can just email someone specifically and ask for help. Don't think that you have to do this all by yourself, because we're all together in this and can help. And two heads are better than one, or how many ever members we have, those number heads are better than one. And you learn along the way with your colleagues.
Right. And you know what I love about our community? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say the serendipity part was at the first conference. Kathy was in Chicago. So I got to go to the first conference, I think it was a couple months after I decided to be photo organizer. So
yeah, and our 14th conference will be in San Diego. I just put a link in the chat there in April, and we're pretty excited about that. So it's been many years of conferences that have, and this business is just growing. I mean, as and Bonnie, I think you're right in the sweet spot of, I'm sure you're seeing the growth yourself, right? 10,000 people every day turn 65 and will now for the next 6 years. I mean, they call it the tsunami of stuff, right? People are, and then asking themselves, what is the value of these things? How do I downsize? And then also, does the next generation want this? And I always say, right, they don't want all of the photos you've ever taken, especially now with digital, because we take 200 photos. I was thinking about, I don't think I probably have maybe 200 or 300 childhood photos, but you probably take 200 photos of a kid's soccer game right now. It's just like, when you think about it, right? It's just, so how do we curate that collection so that the stories that they tell that we care most about are shared and passed down to the next generation, right?
Right. And I'll share something that when a potential client calls me to ask what I do and to see if they want to hire me, some of them have told me, my kids say they don't want the photos. Just throw them out, Mom. I don't want them. And I very gently and diplomatically say, now they don't want them because they're young, they have professions, they have kids, they have young families. Life is busy. They're not where we are in our life. So right now they aren't, but someday when you are not here, they will want them. But what they don't want is the mess.
Yep.
They will have to throw those 17 boxes away because they don't know who's in the pictures, or it's overwhelming and they're grieving that you're gone. So let's do it now, and they will love it. And you will have your story told and your legacy created for them to enjoy.
Yeah. And Bonnie, you mentioned too, like presenting, you did a great job at our conference and talked about creating legacy boards. And so let's just talk about that for a minute before we go to questions. One of the things that I think you were surprised that it's kind of been a piece of your, that happened in your business, but working with clients, you really get to know them, right? And then that request to when somebody passes away. You want to tell us that story a bit?
Absolutely. So I've been working with a client for several months. I was mostly working with the adult child who lived with her aging parents. But I knew the whole family, and the mom passed away after a 7-month illness. And so the daughter, and we were still working on the printed photo collection. We weren't done. And so, but the daughter said, Mom, Bonnie, can you create photo memorial boards? And I said, absolutely. I've never done it. And so here's a good example, Kathy. I'd never done it in 16 years in business. And luckily I had a brunch with our Chicago group, like maybe a day later. And I usually don't work on the deadlines because I'm working for months or years with my clients. So that was a new layer of challenge. But I asked my colleagues, I said, hey, I've never done this. I'm sure some of you have. So Lita told me exactly who she used, how she did it. And that gave me the tools that I needed to do it. And then when I went to deliver the photo boards to the church social hall where the wake was being held, I stayed to pay my respects, but also just to see how these boards played out in reality for the family. And so I'm just standing back and I see people coming into the social hall and I'm like, oh, that's Uncle Frank and that's Grandma Susie and that's, her sister. But I knew everybody because I had been working on the photos. And my best part is that I saw her granddaughter, who was like 10 years old, come in, and, a 10-year-old at her grandmother's wake, how uncomfortable can she be? So I went up to her and I said, are you Savannah? And she said, yes. I said, I'm Bonnie, and I did all these boards. I remember a photo of you and Grandma in your bikinis and your sunglasses at the beach. Do you want to go see it with me? So I'm tearing up just sharing this with everybody. We walked over to the boards and I showed her the photo and she's like, wow. And then she says, and she knew everybody. And then I took her over to another board and she said, oh, well, that picture is Grandma and Grandpa, but who's that? I said, that's your mom when she was 3 years old. She had never seen that photo. And so to me, that's part of the gift, is that unfortunately her grandmother had passed, but now all these people were looking at the boards, finding themselves and telling stories and meeting each other that maybe they didn't know in person, but now they did.
Yeah, that's amazing. And, one thing that we at the Photo Managers, we're actually working really hard on a legacy kind of an advocacy program where we're because these need for legacy stories and also the idea of living legacies, like telling your stories and doing like a living memorial instead of waiting until somebody passes away. We're doing a lot of work in this area in creating a program where people go through a course and learn what are the right questions to ask, what are the ethics around that, and it's a really growing part of our business. And it's kind of, I would say it's like a bottoms up. It's kind of come from people like Bonnie or members in our community that have had these experiences more and more. And we realized we wanted to give more advanced training and information on that. So you're a big part of, these stories that helping families tell these stories, right? It's amazing.
Right.
It's a gift, exactly. And it's priceless. It is a priceless gift.
And I'll say, because I know I'm not comfortable talking about money, with my clients, that's my least favorite part. Like I wish I had a manager who could do all that part, but a potential client gave me a great piece of insight when we were talking on the phone and she was going to hire me, and I quoted her my rate and basically, had to tell her, I don't know how much it really will be at the end. She said, Bonnie, that's okay. It's an investment in my family and in our story and our history. You can't go to Target and get one off the shelf for X amount of dollars. This is an investment. So I've used that terminology with potential clients to explain to them, I can't tell you how much it's going to be. I can tell you it's not hundreds of dollars, it's thousands of dollars, and I can give them a wide range if I wish, but it's an investment and it's something, it's not a commodity. It's not something you can just get any day, anywhere. It's a priceless gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So, and once we help people understand the value, then it's a whole different, yeah, it's not about how much you charge per hour or whatever. It's what the outcome is. So I noticed some questions have been coming in. Kimberly, you want to read out some of the questions that have come for Bonnie, and other people have questions and things like that. Go ahead and drop them in the chat.
How do you help clients decide what to digitize, throw away, etc.?
So my general process, just give you the high level process, is take all these jumbled up boxes and albums, and we try to put them in a general chronological order. Not perfect, because that's hard, but a general flow so the person's story is told. And then we do a few passes. The first pass could be after the chronology is sort of established, remove duplicates, redundant, poor quality, because I always tell people from the get-go, and I repeat that over and over, we're going for quality, not quantity. Even if we waved a magic wand over this whole collection, it's more than we want to tell your story. We want the best of the best. So, and I always say when I work on them by myself, let's say I'm working with a client that I'm not working in person with, I tell them I edit very lightly because a story, a photo looks crummy, like maybe it's their baby with a chocolate face, you might think, oh, that's a terrible photo, but no, that might have been the kid's first chocolate ice cream cone, and we want that because there's a story behind it. So I edit lightly on my own, but I find when you're going through a collection and building a database of the content, it's easier to make those decisions of like, okay, let's let go of this because we have a better one over here. Quality over quantity.
Agreed. Do you have a picture of the legacy board, or can you describe it for our viewers?
Can I go get one that's under my bed?
Absolutely. Not a problem in the world. And I will echo Bonnie's, while she's looking, I will echo Bonnie's thought about younger 20-year-olds want to throw away photos, but as you age, they want to keep them more and more because they understand the fragility of our history. There you go. Excellent. Tilt it back toward you just a little. No, yep, there you go. Like that. Oh, perfect. That really gives us a little bit of a view. I hope that helps that. That's lovely.
And these are 20 by 30. These are 20 by 30 boards that I have printed at Walgreens because I've done some from all over the country, and you can do it at a local Walgreens. And I do chapters. So I usually do 6 to 9 boards, like their childhood, their marriage, their cousins, their passion, their profession, their hobbies. So it's sort of fun, like you're writing a book, but through a board.
That's lovely. And I really see, having done the video part of that, that this way you can sit, you can watch, you can look at those pictures, you can view them. They're not flipping on a screen like they are in some places. That's so valuable. Thank you for sharing that. We really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And just one more step, Kimberly. The first client that I did these for, the husband, he was grieving his wife. And so he had these all over the house. Like he didn't want to let go of them. So for Easter, the daughter said, Bonnie, can you make a photo book of these? So I did. I made 6 copies of a photo book so the kids and the father could have something that they could hold in their hands and not just be spread all over the house and the boards. So to me, that's a natural, and you can even add the obituary to the book. You can really do the whole story in one book.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That's a great idea. Tom, I'm going to address Tom's because I think it's really important. Tom has 3 boys and wondered what will happen to all the work that he's done in ancestry and everything else. Is it worth it? I will say that I became the historian of my family because of my grandmother, and I have taken over everything in my family from my grandmother. So even if your children might decide not to do that, you still have hope in your grandchildren. And how do you organize for your client, by date or by subject, Bonnie?
by date. And I'm very strict about that because I've had several clients who didn't know about our services and they started subject sorting or by kid. And it just gets a mess because you have a picture of your kids. Well, which pile do you put it in? Because all three kids are there. And so I'm very particular about chronology because that's the whole flow. And then you can share with whoever you want. And with tagging and keywording, that's where you get to the subject matter. So let's say you had a daughter who loved to play soccer and you want to make a photo book for her. Well, you can mark all the photos that have soccer in them, pull them together on your computer and make a book or a slideshow or whatever you want. So you can always do subject matter after the fact, but chronology. And there was my one exception that I tell my clients are, most clients have all of the class photos from their kids' grammar school and high school and college. And I don't put those chronologically with the rest of the photos. I keep them by folder, by kid. Because you like to do that. You like to see your kid from kindergarten through college sort of, transform, but they're not emotional generating photos because they were taken by a professional and the kid, had to pose. So that's the one, what do I say, exception to my master chronology rule.
Cool. When you're working with a client for months and even years, how do you handle billing with such a long timeline?
So the way I work, if I work in person with the person, and they pay me before I leave. So if it's 3 hours, it's 3 times my hourly rate. Then when, let's say I take all the photos back to my office because they're ready to get scanned and then I do my post-scanning work, then I ask for typically 10 hours, like a retainer-ish kind of thing to give me 10 hours. And then I, work against the 10 hours and then rebill them. So I'm never working without payment ahead of time, which I know we all colleagues helped us get through that because you should be paid for your services and you don't want to be worried about collecting. That's just an uncomfortable place to be as a business owner.
All right. I have 40 years of photos from an organization that I'm part of. And there's no headquarters or place to donate the albums. Any thoughts on how to share these photos to keep the history?
So I'm guessing they've been scanned already. So it's more about the digital version.
They did not indicate that, but let's go with both. If I had already scanned it or I have these photos, what do I do?
I mean, it costs because it's subscription, but SmugMug or Zenfolio are two gallery, cloud-based places that you could be sharing it that's independent of whether you're PC or Mac. Apple gives us shared albums, but then that's still a maintenance question. So see, Kimberly, this is where my least favorite piece of the puzzle is. I don't want to come up with that answer for the technology piece of sharing these all. I rather just, here's a flash drive, give one to each of your kids and you got it. You're done.
Well, I will support you while you're thinking. How's that? We'll tag team a little bit. The
Excellent.
other place that I would suggest looking is Forever, and that is a photo storage site. And the reason why I would definitely suggest Forever is you pay one time for the storage and you own it for your lifetime plus 100 years. And I'm a Forever rep. And the reason why I use it for my clients is they never have to worry about it again. So especially with an organization, if you were able to do that and pay one time, you wouldn't have to worry about, unlike SmugMug and Apple and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, where you'd have to pay every year. That would get very kind of wonky, especially when there's no headquarters or something. So that's technology wise, that's what I would suggest.
Right.
And do you
and then
have
if
a
we're talking about
suggestion
the physical,
physical?
and I saw somebody just mention libraries. I was going to say historical societies, or even just another organization that's sort of an adjunct in terms of the topic that it covers, that it might be maybe in another state that they want that kind of content because it furthers their awareness of whatever the topic or nature of the organization is.
Mm-hmm. Um, our next question, that's a great answer to that, Bonnie. Our next question is, some programs allow you to colorize your black and white photos, and which programs are really good at this, and how do they do that? For most black and white photos, I don't even know if the colors are right.
So they're black and white photos and they want to colorize them now?
Yes.
I've never done that. I've never done that.
I will give an example of that. Again, we're going to tag team Bonnie here. I had a gentleman whose father was 85 and his mother had passed, and he had this little teeny portrait photo that was a black and white, and he really wanted a little colorization for his father. And even he said, we had to find out, yes, she has green eyes. You have to think of that. What if they're blue? What if they're green? You know, and that type of, what color hair did she have? You know, was it red? Was it, and we did it professionally for him. In that particular instance, you know, it was really important that it would be perfect. I don't know that there's the, for the technology part, I don't know if there's programs now that do it really well, that you can really count on. Photoshop will do it in some ways, but again, I wouldn't count on it.
I was saying professional photo editors too. I mean, professionals that do this, you know, we have members that can take an old black and white photo and restore it to like amazing, can also do the colorization piece of it.
Yeah. And someone is asking, could you show the board again, please? The screen. Okay. And there you go. I think,
and I even used blue. I even used blue. That was the client's favorite color. So, you know, little detail, but yep.
Let's see. Okay.
You know, and speaking of the boards, I just mentioned, I made them when my brother passed away, and my mom had them framed, and they're in her bedroom. So we have two memorial boards of my brother. So they can be, you know, they can have a long life, even though it was on, you know, on that kind of board and things like that. So.
Let's see. Just because your audience for your family isn't ready today doesn't mean they won't be in the future. I think that addresses Tom's too. Let's see. Public libraries might take them. Kathy gave some suggestions. If you go with your Forever site, you can choose an ambassador to help you set up your account and organized. And, you know, and I certainly would be happy to help if that would be good. Ancestry does colorization. There's Tom's suggestion. Thank you, Tom. Boy, you've been questioned and answered. That's wonderful.
I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Well,
and, do you have, oh, I have a question about the board, just for, because they may not think about this. Is there a certain program you use for that?
It's Walgreens. It's their website.
Oh, okay. So they have the template for the board? Okay.
They have templates. I think it's called a poster board is what the official name of it is. And they have different templates. And so, but you can customize it. So I think the most you can put on one board in their templates is like maybe 9 photos, but I put 20 or 25. So you can customize and do whatever you want. So I've saved those because now I can, if I want to repurchase, if I do another client, I can take, you know, Mr. Jones, I can take his boards and then customize those to try to, you know, save as much time as possible because there's deadlines now with these.
And Bonnie, when you are creating the boards, and let's say you live in Chicago and your client is having their funeral in Charlotte, North Carolina, you could have them pick it up in the Walgreens in Charlotte, right?
Funny you should say. Yes. Because I've had that twice now. And I said, I don't want to have them printed locally because I want to see them before my client sees them, because quality control is very important, especially because of the time frame. So we had time. I had like a week, and I printed them here. I checked them out. They're perfect. I packed them up, I thought, perfectly. We had FedEx get them to the place where they were staying. The day before the funeral, she got in the package. She finally opened them up, the client, the daughter. And she said, Bonnie, there's all these white scratches all over the boards. I'm like, oh boy. So she sent me pictures, and I obviously didn't package them well enough or didn't understand what could happen, even though I packaged them very well. So I had to call Walgreens out in Colorado, and I had to find one that had the boards and had the ink and had the machine that worked. So it was a challenge. And I sent the thank you gift card to the lady who did them in the end in Boulder, Colorado for me, because shipping got in trouble. So I've done both, Kimberly, and you learn along the way, right? You do things the first time and you figure out, but it all worked out beautifully. And actually the client was sort of tickled because now they have 2 copies of everything and I only charged for one because it was my mistake, even if there's scratches on it. So happy ending all the way around.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, that's all our questions at this time.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So, well, one just popped in quick.
Okay. What is the first thing that you do in the client's home? Do you put all of the boxes on their table or what?
Yes. So when I'm having my first contact with them, before I go over there, I tell them there's really no homework except to centralize your collection of photos. And if you have a spare bedroom or a dining room table that you don't need for a few weeks or months, just pull them together because then you get a sense of the quantity. So that's the first step. And I always bring empty boxes. And if they have some empty boxes too, we use those to start the sorting and curating process.
Excellent. Excellent. And a great thing to tip when you're starting to do this is Dollar Tree has shoe boxes that have lids and they're $1. What is it now? 23, 24, something like that. But those are great because they're cheap and they're just perfect for like 4x6s. So
right, and they don't have to be fancy or archival, right? For the eventual delivery, they have to be archival, but for the work process.
Say, not to sort, you don't have to worry about that. Store is a whole nother ball of wax. How much of your work is Apple versus window?
Most are Apple. And so I do have my workhorse that I'm on right now is a PC, but I did get a Mac back in the day because I want to be like bilingual, just so I can understand. I have an iPhone, so it all works. Most of my clients are Apple, which to me is a really good system for a consumer, even if it gives us as photo organizers challenges because they keep changing the programs. But that's the challenge. If your client is PC, you have these programs that you could use. If you have a Mac, you have different programs. So that's, again, where I sort of separate myself, and that's not my concern, ideally.
Right. Right. Do you care whether you work with a Mac or a PC client? Do you prefer one over the other?
Not necessarily, but I think Apple, it's a system that, and Apple's not going anywhere, because I always want to tell people, you want to make a choice that something's going to be around in a day or a week or a month or years. And I feel like Apple, even if they change their software, they're not going anywhere. They're most reliable. Forever, obviously, as a place that, is reliable, which is a bonus for them. But I think Apple, it's just because then people have them in their, and I'm more familiar with Apple in a phone wise. I'm iPhone. So it's what I know I'm more comfortable with.
And I think you make an excellent point. It's what you feel comfortable with. Is if you're uncomfortable with it, don't, you're not going to start off on your best foot. If, do you agree?
Right.
You got to be comfortable. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, this has been so lovely.
Yeah, that reminds me, I'm just going to put a quick note in the chat. We have a great YouTube channel. Please go in and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And we did a great, we call it Kathy's Picks Live, but I did a great interview on using, organizing your photos on the Apple ecosystem. And we decided from all the questions that we're going to also now do one in organizing your photos if you're not in Apple and you're more in the Android, and then we're going to do have a guest expert photo organizer who does both. So because some people are cross platforms, like what if you're an Apple user but your husband has an Android, or what do you do? How do you merge those different libraries? So that'll be coming up in the future on our YouTube channel. So if you subscribe, then you'll know when those trainings are coming. So because that's a big question, a big struggle for people, right? So.
And I want to give one piece of advice, if I may. Which I gave to one of the new Chicago people that is launching her business next month, I believe. she was getting nervous. I don't want to launch my business because I don't feel like I know everything I need to know. And what I told her was, you are already 10 steps ahead of a potential client in whatever need that they have. So you don't need to be the expert, but you're the first step for them to take, and they feel better even just contacting you because they realize that their service is available to help them. So you sort of like just jump in the pond, and we're all here to help you and support you and be, collaborative with you.
Right. Thank you so much for saying that, Bonnie, because it's so true. You'll never know it all. It's impossible. When we do our new member orientation, because we have, probably 10 to 15, sometimes 25 new members a month, the last Friday of every month. And that's the biggest piece. That's my main, find a client, don't panic. We've got your back. There's other people that will help you, and it's okay. You're never going to know everything. It keeps changing, especially with technology today. I mean, it's just, and the nice thing is there was a big hoo-ha with Adobe recently, which I noticed. And one of our members sent me a note over the weekend, and he said, hey, I see a lot of people are confused about this whole Adobe thing. I feel like I can offer some insights. And we had a webinar, I think, with 135 people attending on Tuesday, where he is a professional member. He understood what was happening and educated us. So, within a week, we can turn around. An expert in our community will offer the training to help us, everybody else that wasn't understanding what everything that was happening, what was important. So you can Google. Tom asked what was the Adobe issue. It is about it has to do with AI and who owns the rights to things. And it's the wild, wild west out there now, right? Especially with AI, what's happening with AI and who owns the rights to photos and the photos that you take and things. So it's changing rapidly, and we're trying to stay on top of it as fast as we can. So, well,
I'm sorry, because everything we knew. So I'm working with a client yesterday on her printed photos, and I've worked on digital with her before, but we're doing printed. And I want to explain to everybody that when you address a client's collection, some photos, it's very clear they were taken with film. We have negatives, but we don't have a digital version of them until we scan them. Then there are other ones that you took yesterday. Okay, we know they're digital because you took them yesterday with your phone. It's that gray area in the middle that's sort of sometimes hard to know. Are you just going to have a print, or are you going to have the digital too? So this woman had one of her favorite photos. She and her sister and mom had done a breast cancer walk. So they had t-shirts on. And she says, I think this is digital, but I don't know when. I don't remember the date. So she said, I think I may have it on my phone. I said, okay, let's go to your Apple Photos. And she put in the word walk as a search term. I told her that because it said walk on the shirt, and it came up because AI is now our friend in some respects. It's our foe in others, but it brought it up right away in the other 8 photos that she had on that same day. And so OCR and AI and our world of photos is a great tool for us trying to solve some of the questions that we have to deal with our client collections. So
right.
Another experience.
And the final note on that, Bonnie, is the reason why AI isn't going to take away the jobs of photo organizers, because people worry about that, is because though we've pulled it up and walked, but it doesn't know the story of what it felt like to have the breast cancer, it might know who they were walking for if they had her name on it and things like that. But it's the story part that AI cannot, AI, it's just, that is where human beings still are going to be a part of it. It speed up the process, but it can't tell the story the way that we do. It's just, so if any of you worry that AI is going to impact your business, it's that we really believe strongly that it's not at this point. Well, thank you again, Bonnie. It was wonderful to have you with us. Thank you, everybody, all your great questions, those that joined us. We have put some notes in the chat. We'd love to have you, if you're interested in joining the photo managers, we'd love to welcome you to our professional membership. And also, if you're not sure if you want to do this or you want to just get your own photos organized first, we have a great program called Photo Manager in Training. It's a 1-year program. You'll get a prompt every month. You'll meet all the other people. You'll do it together as a group. And we walk you through the process of getting your own photos organized. And in that process, you can decide if it's something that you want to do as a business or not. So we'd love to have you join us in any of those. But thank you again, Bonnie, for your time. Have a great weekend, everybody. And see you again at the next webinar or YouTube live event that we do. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks, Kimberly, for answering our questions and joining us.
No problem.
Thanks for tag teaming, Kimberly.
Good to see you.
Take care.